Well, good afternoon and welcome everyone to today's Beyond the Studio webinar. As many of you know who've been joining us each week, this is the fifth in a 7-part series that BRR is offering. For years, BRR has worked with college students and universities across the nation to support the next crop of talent as they enter into the field of architecture and design. While the pandemic has sort of messed up our plans for in-office tours, mid-crits, and portfolio reviews, this webinar series gives us all another chance to get together and offer our insights into what it's really like working inside an architecture firm. We are so excited today to be listening to two amazing presenters, Laura Boler and Marinelly Frias. They're going to be talking with us today about construction documents and the role they play in an architecture project. Marinelly has been with BRR for over 21 years. As you can see, she's only probably must have started when you were about 10, Marinelly. And then Laura has been with us for 4 years, and Laura serves as a client manager. So both of their perspectives will be really nice to have today. Before I turn it over to them, just a reminder for attendees today, if you have any questions for our presenters, please just type them in the chat feature of your YouTube panel on the right-hand side. I'll be monitoring any questions or comments that come in, and we will make sure we address those at the end of the presentation. Also, we are recording today's webinar. So if you have peers or friends who were not able to join us for the live webinar, it will be available here on the BRR YouTube channel. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Marinelly and Laura.
Thank you, Wendy. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well, staying safe and healthy. I want to start with a brief introduction of our office, BRR. Our firm was founded in 1963 with our home office located in Kansas. Today, we have team members located across the United States. And our client base is primarily in the retail, hospitality, grocery, office environment, and industrial sectors. My name is Marinelly Frias, and as Wendy mentioned, I started when I was 10, just kidding. I have been in BR for 21 years, straight out of Louisiana State University. Go Tigers! I started in our home office in Kansas City, and an opportunity was presented to me that landed me here in Florida, where I currently am located. And I collaborate with just about every studio at BRR that has a client presence in the state of Florida. I'm always curious about what it takes to get the pretty picture on the renderings into a complete building. And that is through construction documents. But I am only one of 2 presenters today. So Laura Boler joins us from our Phoenix office, and I will leave her to introduce herself and get us started.
Yes, thank you, Marinelly. So hi, everybody. I'm Laura Boler, and like she said, I'm in our Phoenix office. I just moved here about a year ago, so I moved to the desert in the summertime. Before then, though, I graduated from the University of Kansas, so go Jayhawks, not Tigers. And I've been at BRR for about 4 years now, but I have 10 years of experience. And like Wendy mentioned, I am currently managing one of our national retail clients. So thank you for joining us today. Hope you learned something. Before we begin, just a few housekeeping items. Make sure that you register on our Eventbrite website. And then like Wendy said, stick around for a Q&A session. There's that chat feature on YouTube that you can use to submit any questions you may have. So the typical architectural services can be outlined as you see here. If you attended any of our previous sessions, you've already kind of got a brief introduction to schematic design, entitlement, and design development. Today, we're going to be focusing on construction documents, or known as CDs. Now, the CDs are not just one document, but it's a combination of 4 elements that include the project manual, the specifications, the drawings, the shop drawing submittals, and the cut sheets. Now, this is a very daunting task. When I first started out, it's like, you get tasked to produce this construction document. There's a lot of pieces that go into this big umbrella of CDs. So we're hoping that as we go through this presentation, we're going to dig a little bit deeper into each of these 4 elements to give you a better overview of what it takes to actually produce this phase of the project. However, before we dive into CDs, we really need to understand the responsibilities, who's responsible for who, where the contracts lay, and who's responsible for coordinating. Before any project begins, the owner is contracting us as the architect to produce the documents. Now, when I say the architect, there's a lot of people involved in the architectural bubble that you see here. For instance, my team that I manage, I'm the client manager, and I talk directly with the owner to get the project specifics, to get the, those assignments. Then we have a team of project managers that individually see individual projects. Each project manager can have about 2 to 3 different projects at any given time. And then we also have our project designers that assist our project managers. And inside that bubble are also all of our supporting components, our code analysis, our permitting experts, our admin staff. So there's a lot of people in that architectural bubble that you see there. So we as the architect are responsible for contracting, the structural, the MEP, and any other consultants that are required for the project. Now, the owner is typically responsible for contracting the civil, the geotech, and the landscape architect. Now, just because we as the architect aren't contracting directly with those other entities does not allow us to just ignore them. We must coordinate throughout the project with these other consultants so we have one cohesive project at the end. So this is really important to understand how everything is set up so we know, what is going to be in our construction documents going forward.
So the first question that comes to our minds is what encompasses a good set of construction documents and what is included? Well, I can tell you a lot of information and then some. So in short definition, construction documents are a set of documents that are required to permit a project and construct a building. And the amount of information in the documents will depend on the client scope of work and the complexity of the design. I take great satisfaction visiting a job site and seeing firsthand how a building that we drew not even 6 months ago comes off the ground, and even better satisfaction when the GC tells you it helps to have a good set of construction documents to go by. So the bottom line is we handed them a good set of construction documents, a good set of instructions, and our intent today is to provide a general guideline to this set of construction documents. So we begin with the project manual, and this is typically a book about 2 inches thick that holds written documents. It holds forms, bidding requirements, sample documents, conditions of the contract, and specifications. It's put together in great detail in our office and found collecting dust at the construction trailers, but it holds a lot of information when needed, and when the GC needs it, dust it off and use it. Specifications take a better part of the project manual, and we will discuss those specifications in further detail for the purpose of this presentation. And leave bidding documents or requirements for our next session. Specifications can be written in 2 formats, uniformat and master format. The difference between them is one focuses more on the functionality of the systems, whereas the other one organizes the materials by divisions. So the master format is widely used in the industry today. Originally was invented in 1975, and it was only 16 divisions. Today it has grown to 15 divisions, and it keeps updating throughout the years to include advancements and innovation in construction industry. That's why we see gaps in those divisions. The latest revision was done in 2018, and it actually included one very important part, which are modular ramps and stairs for ADA compliance. So contractors have a tendency to look at the specs on a need-to-know basis. When the drawings make reference to it, that's when they go and reference to the specs. It is important, however, that a good set of specs is written and it's inclusive of all the materials and elements in the project. And so we're going to see a little example here. In this one, we have an elevation detail, which shows a keynote calling out for BR1. So in the same sheet, you will find a finish schedule or a finish legend, and it will tell you that BR1 is basically brick, and it refers to specs. So we go to the spec section, which is division 4, and we'll see that the call out in detail calls out for the installation requirements, for the manufacturer, for the color of the brick. And it also instructs the GC to submit samples for review and approval by the designer. I'm going to say this because I always found this interesting, but did you know that in a conflict of information on the plan details, the information on the specs will prevail over the drawings? So it is important to maintain a good set of specs that correlate to the plans.
So as Marinelly discussed, the organization is a key component, and that leads us, now we're going to talk about the actual drawings. So, we have our project manual, which is very important and gives us the nitty-gritty specific information. It's a guideline for the general contractor. Now the drawings are going to show how to put those pieces and parts together to make that pretty picture, in schematic design and DD into an actual buildable project. So, when you're flipping through a set of documents, it's important to organize those set of documents, kind of how we have shown here. So we want to go from large to small, from general to specific, from outside to inside when you're flipping through the set of documents. So what I mean by that is when you get handed a set, and these sets vary per project, they could be really big for a large ground up project, or they could be really small for a remodel, but either way the same components still stand. We want to go with a bigger picture. So for instance, a site layout, and then that leads us to the building layout, and then that leads us to the details. So the organization just allows everyone to understand our design intent to have a successful end product. And here we have it shown, the general sequence of how those sets are put together. And the first is a cover sheet. So in the cover sheet every project has a cover sheet. It is one of the most important pieces of the document because it gives the specific information. It's the who, what, when, where, and how component. It's the one that introduces the project to anyone looking at this set of drawings. We're going to tell them who is the developer or who's the owner, where the project is located, and who the key team members are. And also another important feature is the code analysis and the summary. So this is a really important piece that shows and proves that we've done our due diligence throughout the set, that we have a code compliant project. Now, a couple things you don't see here. So this example is from our new office building in Kansas City called Avenue 82. It was a large 4-story ground up project. Just due to the nature, we weren't able to include the sheet index on the cover sheet. So it's actually included on the next sheet in the set. But I wanted to point out that it's important that every project have that sheet list, because just like one of your textbooks has an index, it's the same principle here, that it shows and it tells everyone a quick guideline if they want to go to the plumbing schedule, or if they need to go to the interior elevations, what sheet they can quickly flip through. And then after the cover sheet is our general information sheet. So this is just going to be general notes that cover the entire project, some ADA requirements, the abbreviations list, and the symbols list. So just some general information that should be included.
So after the general information, it is typical to show the building as it relates to site. Depending on the project, this is done through architectural site layouts or through civil site plans. The difference between the two is that architectural site layout refers more to the building and immediate areas such as sidewalks, and the civil site plans are detailed drawings that focus more on the overall construction site. In my experience, there have been occasions in which the client has requested minor changes to the site parking layout, and we have provided the site layout. But if the scopes require site grading, site drainage, utilities to and out of the site, this is done, best be done by a civil engineer. The architectural plans will include a site layout as it pertains to the building alone, and it will provide grading as it affects the building. For example, we show spot elevations on sidewalks to make sure that the building finished floor elevation and sidewalks meet at the same level. In addition, we added sheets as necessary to include sections for ramps and sidewalks and additional site-related fixtures. This one page in particular is mostly done for the building and fire code compliance. And this is life safety. Fire reviewers will look at this and review it in great detail. The intent is to show how the occupants in the building will make it out of the building to a safe area in case of emergency. I constantly consult with our in-house code reviewer when a life safety plan is being developed to ensure that travel distances are met, that the required number of doors are provided, that we are showing wall fire ratings, that we're also showing fire extinguishers at the proper distances. And this plan is an easier plan to develop when the project is new and slightly harder and more challenging for existing construction. This is because with existing construction, it may or may not meet the life safety requirements. And if there is a change in occupancy types and loads, it may not meet, and so additional changes may be required for the plans for the project.
So once we've determined that we are co-compliant and we have our general information known, we can really now dive into, the floor plans and everything throughout the set, now that we know that we're co-compliant. So, plans are the most fundamental architectural diagrams that we do. It's that view from above, showing the arrangement of the spaces, like a map does. It's basically a map of the building showing those relationships. Technically a floor plan is a horizontal section cut throughout the building, typically at 4 feet above the building, showing walls, windows, doors, openings, stairs, elevators, fixtures, and even sometimes furniture. A lot of information can be shown on plans. And these are just some examples. Not every project will have these types of plans, but this is generally speaking. A lot of information can be shown on here depending on the project, but typically we need further information to convey our design intent. And that's where you're going to see a floor plan like this. So this is taking a floor plan of our Avenue 82 project. And I've highlighted a few examples here where we are calling out for a large floor plan and a detail section, a building section, an elevation. So these are kind of what you see here. And I've only highlighted a few of them. This is a very common practice because, like I said, you can't fit every single piece of information on a plan. So these are going to then put you further into the set where you can go find, a blow-up plan of the stairs or a blow-up plan of the restrooms. And those blow-up plans are going to be a larger plan, just at a larger scale, so you can get into those nitty-gritty details. You can get those dimensions that are down to 1/4 of an inch. So when you're looking at a full building like this, you're never able to get to that detail. So it's very important that we utilize blow-up plans and section cuts to get further information as you go out throughout the set. Next, we have our building elevations, or you can do interior elevations too. So the elevation is just the view of the building as seen from one side. And it is a flat representation of one facade. And this is the most common view used to describe the external appearance of a building and to give the relationship of what that facade looks like. Now, each elevation is labeled in relation to the compass direction it faces. So for example, if you're looking towards the north, you would actually be seeing the southern elevation of the building. And when you get into practice, you're going to hear that, hey, we need to do this on the south side, the south elevation, or the north elevation, or the northwest elevation. It all is in relation to how that building footprint is, relative to north. So it kind of can be a little confusing at the beginning when you're trying to understand, but I'm on the north side and looking south, so which elevation am I looking towards? And, and kind of going back to the floor plan, those are going to help you, those tags are going to help you understand where you are at in relation to the building. Next, we have our sections and details. So we're getting further into, the further level of detail as we get throughout this set. So we go from floor plan to elevation, elevation to section. And sections represent that vertical plane cut through the building. So it's the same way as like the floor plan is a horizontal section cut. The section is a vertical section cut. So you can start to see the relationship between different floors or the floor and a parapet. It gives you that vertical relationship. In those same things, we're going to talk about details, which you see on that bottom left side. Details, this is where everything is at. These are so important to show the exact design intent. It shows you how to put complex things together in the way that we intended. So you can see how we want two walls to go together, or a decorative element on the facade, like a cornice, or it can show, how we want the windows to be put together with the wall and how they're going to be wrapped and watertight. So these are very important. We're starting to get to the really small details within this set that are just as important as those larger, building elevations. So while they seem small, there's a lot of information here. And if those details are not accurate, you're going to have a lot of questions from your general contractor. So, as we've seen this thread, everything has a relationship to the other. You change something on the floor plan, it's going to change on your elevation, and then it's going to change on your section and then your details. So that is something we really want to stress, is that there's really no one-stop shop here. There's really no one place in a document where you can change something. It's only going to change in that one location. And then before you know it, you're going to change something on the floor plan, and then you're going to be on detail 01, changing that chase detail. So that's something we really want to stress.
And so in relationship to those details and those call outs, we have the schedules. And the word schedules here is not a timeline, is not making reference to a timeline. Schedules in a construction set of drawings are a series of tables intended to provide clarity, location, sizing, material, and information on the designation of doors, and windows and room finishes. And it does it in an organized way. And it's directly related to call outs throughout the entire set of plans and the specs. For example, in a plan, we would see a door tag, and in the door schedule, it helps the builder to see the size of the door, the material of the door, if it has a window or not, or glazing. The same thing goes for the room finishes. The room finish schedule will call out the finished material for each of the walls in a room or in a space or in a floor area in the building. During the construction document development, a series of consultants will be required for different trades. What you see here is a list of them. Collaboration among consultants during this construction document development process helps resolve design conflicts. Any change, like Laura was saying, any change in the design or scope can affect other trades. And for example, moving a wall or a column affects structural plans. And if an exterior wall, it will also affect the site plans. And so in order to maintain the team up to date, it's a good rule of thumb to hold meetings at construction document development intervals for one of our clients. Actually, we do a kickoff meeting, a site plan review, a 50% meeting, a 70% meeting, and a final 90% QC meeting. Just today, I had 3 meetings for a 90% QC, and there are details that can get fine-tuned during those meetings and coordinations. Shop drawings are the one item in the construction documents that may or may not be required up front. It truly depends on the jurisdiction. Shop drawings are put together by vendors, and they are reviewed by designers and shop stamped. For example, in California, shop drawings from refrigeration vendors, cooler vendors are required up front to make sure that it complies with seismic requirements, and they are included as part of the permit set of plans. In Orange County here in Florida, the fire department will not issue a permit until the sprinkler shop drawings are designed, reviewed, and approved by the fire protection engineer and stamp shop. Another set of documents that may be required upfront are the cut sheets. And these are mostly informational pages intended to provide additional information about a certain product. Miami-Dade, for example, requires submittal of NOI numbers. These are letters showing that any exterior product that is used in this project is tested for high winds and it's able to be used in hurricane zones. I also had a health department in California that required fruit prep equipment cut sheets to be submitted, as well as floor finish material samples, in order to approve the products to be used and issue the permit.
So we've thrown a lot of information at you guys, but it's a very complex process to put together your set of documents. So you've gone through your coordination with your consultant, and you've put together your floor plans and your elevations and your details and your sections. You think you're ready to issue, but there is one very important step that must occur before anything is issued out the door, and that is the quality control process. And this is a thorough review. As you see here, there are a few different types of QC process: the constructability, code, structural, programmatic, and of course the architect of record needs to review the plans before they sign and stamp them. So in this QC process, not only are these entities reviewing for to making sure that the architectural set is well coordinated throughout the set, that the floor plan matches the elevations, that the details are accurately put together, but it also goes a step further and makes sure that the architectural set is also coordinated with your engineer set, the MEP, or the structural set, or the civil. This is one last check in the process of construction documents to where you're able to find any errors or omissions. You know, our goal is to always send out the best product we possibly can. And this is just that one last step that we take in order to make sure that we're sending out, you know, those sets as complete and accurate as possible before we go to permitting. So if we can pick up any errors or, you know, irregularities in the set before we issue, it just helps us down the line, and it helps our reviewers and our general contractors.
And so after all the plans have been QC'd and signed and sealed, we ship the documents out to permit for the jurisdiction to review and issue the permit, and it also gets sent out for contractors for bidding purposes. Permitting process through the different departments may require additional plans changes, and so we go back to the same process of making the changes to the plan, coordinating with the different trades that have comments as well, and issuing a new revision for submittal to the jurisdiction and approval. Today, more jurisdictions are accepting electronic plans with digital signatures, but a couple of years back, I would walk in with hard copies of plans to be reviewed. Orange County here in Florida required 9 sets of plans. And so you can imagine at 25 pounds a piece plus project manuals, it made for a lot of trips back and forth to the car. New submittals and new processes change every day. So it is our task to coordinate with the different jurisdictions to make sure that we provide them a complete set of plans for review process. Bid documents, bid processes and documents will be covered in detail in a future session. And this concludes just about the general guideline that we intended to provide you. And if you guys have any questions, I hand it over to Wendy.
Thank you, Marinelly and Laura. Yeah, we have a couple of questions. First question, how do you know which elevations to include and where to cut sections? For example, is it acceptable to do one representative elevation when the exteriors are uniform?
I think that's just going to depend on your client and what their expectations are. You know, if you have an elevation, the purpose of that elevation is to show the design intent in relation of materials and, you know, detailing. If that elevation can be shown, if you have 4 walls that are the exact same, you know, I am always proponent to, you know, work smarter. And if those elevations are all the same, there's no reason why you can't use that same elevation, as long as that's thoroughly mentioned and tagged in the plan that that's what you're doing. If there's any variation of that, it's really important that each elevation is then provided separately, so the general contractor, there's no confusion as to what is the design intent. Now the question on the section, where to provide a section cut, really depends on your project. The purpose is to provide further information where you wouldn't be able to see otherwise. So it's really understanding your project and what you need to convey to the general contractor to produce that project in reality. So it's going to be just per project basis, really. If you have a 4,000 square foot retail building, where you have like the sales floor up front and restrooms and back of house in the back, you may be able to get away with just 2 section cuts of your building, because that's all that's required. For a project like Avenue 82, which we use as our example, that's going to require multiple section cuts throughout that building, just so you can convey 100% what your design intent to the general contractor is. So it's really site specific.
Great, thank you, Laura. Another question, what is the order of documents to follow in a conflict? Why do specs override the drawings?
So the order of the construction documents, that's actually set during the contract. So because the specifications write in detail every single part of the material and how it's put together, how it's saved, how it's installed, the requirements prior to installing it, and when there is a conflict, and only when there is a conflict of information on the plans, the specs will prevail over the details on the plans. However, if there is a case of omission, that's a different story, and we're talking legality here, but the bottom line is if there is omission, then there is an error on the construction set. So typically we get an RFI from the contractor requesting additional information. But for the intent and purpose of conflicting information in the details, the specifications will take over and prevail.
I think we should note too that, technically, the specifications, should be the go by. We should always look at the specifications, the drawings, the cut sheets, as a one big group. They should all be seen. And Marinelly mentioned earlier that, the specifications are very important to us because it gives the general contractor exactly what we want, how we want it, where we want it. They typically don't use that, and that's to their disadvantage. But it's one document. They are of equal. They are made of equal. However, because of legality reasons, everybody knows, things arise. We're not perfect. We strive to be, but the specs do take, override the documents sometimes. So.
Great, thank you, Marinelly and Laura. More questions are coming in.
All right.
Do you build your CD documents and sheets in Revit or CAD? And which program do you normally build your 3D model?
So it really depends on your client. BIM, Revit models are the new technology, and it makes sure that in 3D model, it actually encompass, and you can see more in a BIM model than in CAD. However, it's really up to how you are coordinating with the rest of the team. Sometimes it's easier in CAD, and sometimes it's easier in Revit. For the most part, at BRR, we do Revit, and we strive to transfer every single one of our clients into using Revit for efficiency.
But for instance, my client that I manage, it's client driven that we have to use CAD, and that's because their vendors use CAD too. So while we want Revit, it just depends on your client and what they want. So.
Great, okay. what do you guys find to be the most challenging aspect of producing construction documents?
Oof. That's a loaded question. I think the most challenging, honestly, is the coordination amongst all the different consultants. You know, there's a lot of pieces. We briefly covered the surface on what we include. Not only do you have to coordinate amongst your 50 sheets for a project, you also have to coordinate with all the consultants, not only the ones that are underneath our umbrella contract, but also, you know, any owner consultants. We are looked upon as the architect, as the overseer of everybody. So they contract us as the architect to make sure the civil provides exactly what we need for the building, then make sure the landscape architect conveys the right language of the landscaping that matches our building design. You know, it's in addition to making sure that there's electrical outlets and plumbing fixtures where we need them. You know, we have a big umbrella as the architect, and I think that's the most daunting task, because if anything changes, like the smallest of change, like you move a cash register, or you move the entry door 6 feet over, you know, you might hit a column, or you might hit something, you know, like there's another conflict. There's a big domino effect. And I kind of mentioned that earlier, that you can't change one thing on one page and not expect it to trickle down. And that's the most challenging, is making sure everybody's on the same page. When there's
and along those lines, it's also important that first of all, that you see that every challenge is an opportunity to grow, right? And so for me, maintaining a high level of accuracy between materials and between details while you're abiding by building code, and at the same time meeting the client's expectations to make sure that we're putting together this project with a cost-effective approach. It is important for the client. It is important to maintain schedules. It is important to maintain accuracy. And so to me, that's challenging.
All right, thank you. And we have another question. This one's about timelines. Could you talk more about the timelines you face in creating all the documents and going through the QC process?
so
Well, I'm going to take this one because it really, again, it really depends on the complexity of the project. So obviously we have clients in which, you know, the extent or your scope of work, it's small. So 2-3 weeks will be sufficient. But then you have projects in which the complexity is above, you know, what a typical timeline. So it could be anywhere from 4, 6, 7, 8 weeks. And throughout the entire process, you're still coordinating with the entire team.
Yeah, I think that our Avenue 82 was at least 3 months that took to completely produce the documents, because just of the complexity of it, you know, a 4-story, you know, building. So it depends. It's also client driven too. How fast do they want it?
So much as it depends anymore, it seems.
It is.
Yes, it is. And clients have the expectation of faster, better. And so we have to be very careful that while we're complying with faster, and we're not losing track of quality control.
Yes.
Right. Managing that accuracy, as you said, Marinelly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if there are any final questions, I invite participants to type them in the chat feature. While you're thinking of any final questions for our panelists, let me just put in a plug for next, well, no, it's not next week, but our next webinar. We're actually going to be skipping next Tuesday, and we will resume on Tuesday, June 30th. And that topic will be construction administration. So we'll go into even further detail. That one again is June 30th. It's another Tuesday. 2:30 p.m. Central Time, and we would encourage you to register on Eventbrite. Okay, one final question. You mentioned that drawings are issued to the jurisdiction and to the GC. Is it a challenge to make sure accurate documents are on site?
So it's not a challenge because typically once a set of documents from a jurisdiction is approved, the approved set of plans is actually delivered or sent out or given to the general contractor. So the contractor goes over to the jurisdictions to pick up the permit, and they are also handed right then and there a set of plans. Or today, because of COVID and also because of advancement, they're actually handed, they can download this stamped approved set of plans from the city's website or the jurisdiction's website. But it's not a challenge. I think the challenge comes when there are changes in the construction scope that, you know, we have to let the contractor know there is a change that's coming in for review in the jurisdiction. You have to make sure that you go and pick up that change after it gets approved. But it's basically coordination between trades, and we're constantly coordinating with our contractors.
It's not hard, like she said, because it's actually required by law. By each jurisdiction has their own requirements to keep the most current and accurate documents on site. So if they don't keep it on site, that's on the general contractor, and they would get in trouble for that. So it's not hard.
Great. Well, that looks like it concludes all of the questions so far that have been submitted. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Laura and Marinelly, for sharing such a insightful presentation today. Thank you, attendees, for logging in and joining us today for construction documents. We hope to see you in a couple of weeks for the construction administration webinar, which will be the 6th of our 7 webinars we're offering in this series. Be sure to also check out the BRR blog located on our homepage, brrarch.com, to view the scheduling of upcoming topics, as well as a lot of other great information about our firm. We're very excited. Would love to have you learn more about us. So that concludes today's time. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and please stay safe and be well.
Thank you.